the illusion most people live in. What if everything you've been taught about life was wrong? Not entirely wrong, but subtly misaligned with the deeper truths of existence. What if the race you're running has no finish line? What if all the striving, controlling, and planning was keeping you from the very thing you were searching for? Most people live inside a mental construct, a belief system they never truly chose. They inherit it. They absorb it from family, from society, from culture, and then build their entire lives around it. Go to school, get a job, chase success, find security, and one day, someday, arrive at happiness. But that day never comes. Not really, because the structure itself is flawed. It's a script written by fear and reinforced by repetition. Alan Watts once said, "We are all just playing roles, wearing masks we didn't design, performing in a play we didn't write." That idea might sound poetic, but it's far more than that. It's a mirror, showing us how trapped we are in identities we mistake for truth. The businessman who can't stop working, the student who always feels behind, the mother who has forgotten herself, the wanderer who keeps moving but never arrives. These aren't just characters, they're illusions that feel real. Here's the catch. They feel real because everyone else believes them too. You walk through the world, and you see others running the same race, chasing the same illusions, trapped in the same story. That makes it harder to question it, harder to step back and ask, wait, who wrote this rule book? And do I actually want to live by it? The truth that most people never understand is this. Life is not a destination. It's not a mountain you climb so you can stand at the top and finally relax. Life is the dance, not the arrival. It's the music, not the final note. The joy isn't out there, somewhere in the future. It's hidden in the rhythm of this very moment. But you'll miss it if you're too busy trying to arrive. You've likely been told that your worth is measured by productivity, that stillness is laziness, that questioning the script is dangerous. But what if stillness is clarity? What if questioning is the beginning of freedom? Alan Watts didn't just teach philosophy. He invited people to wake up from the hypnotic trance of culture. He didn't offer answers. He asked better questions. And one of the most powerful was this. What would you do if money were no object? Not just as a fantasy, but as a real thought experiment. Who would you become? What would you explore? What would finally matter? Think about that now. Strip away the expectations, the roles, the noise. What remains? Who remains? That space of not knowing. That's where truth begins. That's where you start to peel away the illusion and glimpse life as it really is. Raw, unpredictable, beautiful, and completely out of your control. And that's not a tragedy. That's liberation. So let me ask you, are you awake or just rehearsing for a life that never arrives? Take a breath. Close your eyes. Feel this moment. It's the only one that's real. Now, if this message touched something inside you, I invite you to pause for a moment and share your thoughts. Leave a comment below. Not a long one, just something honest. Write this in the comments. I've been chasing something that might not even exist. This made me stop and think. Your reflection might be the very thing someone else needs to read today. Let's wake up, together. The trap of the future and the lie of control. Have you ever noticed how we're always living for a moment that hasn't happened yet? We postpone joy, peace, and presence in favor of preparation. We're constantly getting ready for work, for success, for the weekend, for retirement, for the day we'll finally feel fulfilled. But that day never truly arrives, because it only exists in the future, and the future, by its very nature, never comes. It's a moving target, always just out of reach. Alan Watts called this the great human mistake, believing that life is a journey with a final destination, that if we just work hard enough, plan far enough, and control everything precisely, we'll get to a place where everything finally feels right. But life doesn't work that way. It never did. The problem is, we're trained to see time as linear, a line with a past, a present, and a future. From an early age, we're told to prepare for what comes next. Study now to succeed later. Work now to enjoy later. Suffer now to rest later. And most of us go along with it because everyone else is doing the same. It feels safe, predictable, structured, but it's also deeply disconnected from reality. Reality isn't a straight line. It's a constantly unfolding present moment. The only place anything actually happens is now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just now. And yet we ignore it. We overlook it in favor of imagined futures. We spend our days trapped in anticipation and our nights replaying regrets. The present becomes a mere hallway we rush through to get to a room that doesn't exist. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Control is an illusion. You can't control the future. You can't even control the next 5 minutes. The more you try, the more life slips through your fingers. Trying to hold on to life is like trying to hold water in your hand. The tighter you grip, the faster it escapes. Alan Watts explained it beautifully. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. In other words, peace doesn't come from overthinking, overplanning, or over-controlling. It comes from surrendering to the flow, from realizing that you are not separate from life. You are life. You are part of its movement, not its manager. So why do we try so hard to control everything? Because we're afraid. Afraid of uncertainty. Afraid of failure. Afraid of the unknown. But what we don't see is that our fear of chaos creates more chaos. Our obsession with the future prevents us from experiencing the miracle of now. Imagine standing in a beautiful garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and birdsong. But instead of noticing any of it, your eyes are fixed on the gate at the far end. You're thinking about the next place, the next goal, the next thing. You miss the beauty that's already here because you're convinced something better is just ahead. Most people spend their lives in that state, blind to the present, haunted by the future. And then they wonder why life feels empty, rushed, and unfulfilling. Here's the radical shift Alan Watts invited us to make. Stop seeing life as a problem to be solved. See it instead as a dance to be enjoyed, a piece of music to be listened to, not just for the final note, but for every beat along the way. You don't listen to a symphony just to hear the end. You don't go to a comedy show just to hear the punchline. You're there for the experience, the unfolding, the rhythm, the surprise. Life is no different. When you stop demanding that every moment be a stepping stone to something better, you finally arrive. You don't arrive at a place, you arrive in yourself. So take a deep breath. Look around. What are you missing right now in your rush to get somewhere else? What beauty is being sacrificed on the altar of someday? Remember, the future is a concept. The only real time is now. And if you can learn to live in it, even for a moment, you've already stepped into the truth that most people never understand. The self is a myth, and that's liberating. We live our lives believing in a central idea, that each of us is a separate, fixed identity. A singular self located somewhere behind the eyes, pulling the strings. It feels like there's a little me in our heads, watching, judging, reacting, and making decisions. But what if that sense of self is an illusion? Alan Watts boldly challenged this idea, stating that the ego, the I we think we are, is a mental construction. It's not who we truly are. It's a mask, a role, a narrative that we build over time. We give it a name, a story, preferences, opinions, and fears. Then we carry it like a heavy costume, assuming that's the real us. But who were you before someone told you your name? Who were you before you believed you were this and not that? Who are you when you're not thinking about who you are? This is where it gets uncomfortable, because if the self is a story, then who's the storyteller? And if the ego isn't real in the way we think it is, then what is? Most people run from this question. It feels like staring into the void, like losing everything that makes you you. But according to Watts, that's exactly where freedom begins. You see, the ego lives in fear because it believes it is separate, separate from others, separate from nature, separate from God. It sees the world as out there, something to defend against, conquer, or figure out. This illusion of separation is the root of suffering. Because when you think you're separate, You also think you're vulnerable. You feel alone, exposed, and fragile. But here's the deeper truth. You are not separate from life. You are life. Just as a wave is not separate from the ocean, you are not separate from the universe. You are an expression of it, a pattern of energy, a unique ripple in the vastness of being. You're not in the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself from a particular point of view. Watts said, "You are the Big Bang, the original force of the universe, coming on as whoever you are." Let that sink in. You are not a stranger to this world. You are this world, in motion, in form, in human shape. The idea of the separate self is a useful tool. It helps us function. It helps us navigate society. But it becomes a prison when we believe it's all we are. When we cling to the ego as reality, we suffer. We compare. We compete. We fear death. We try to protect something that was never permanent in the first place. But when we loosen our grip on that ego, something amazing happens. We begin to feel light, open, connected. Instead of being a drop trying to survive the ocean, we realize we are the ocean, and that realization brings peace. Think about your thoughts. Where do they come from? Do you control them, or do they simply arise? The truth is, thoughts appear on their own, and the ego claims them afterward. It says, "I thought that," as if it created the thought. But the thought just happened, like a cloud forming in the sky, like a breeze passing through the trees. Realizing this doesn't make you lose control. It sets you free. You stop trying so hard to be something. You stop pretending. You start being. You laugh more. You breathe easier. You stop judging yourself and others so harshly. You begin to trust life again. Of course, the ego doesn't like this. It will fight to stay in control. It will scream, "But if I'm not the self, then who am I? What do I become?" And the answer is, you don't become anything. You return to what you've always been, consciousness itself, presence, awareness, the quiet observer behind the noise. And in that space, there is no need to define yourself, no need to defend yourself, no need to be anything other than here, now, alive. So ask yourself, are you the voice in your head, or the awareness listening to it? Most people never reach that question. They spend their whole lives defending a character that was never truly them. But now you have the chance to see beyond it, not as a belief, but as a direct experience. And that's where true peace begins. Life is not a problem to be solved. From a young age, we're taught that life is a challenge to overcome, a puzzle to figure out, a mountain to climb, something broken that needs fixing. We spend our days trying to solve ourselves, our relationships, our future, our past. But what if the very act of trying to solve life is what's keeping us from living it? Alan Watts offered a different perspective. He believed that life is not something to conquer, but something to experience. That our obsession with control and explanation was actually pulling us away from the very truth we seek. He often asked, "What makes you think that life is a serious business?" And in that question, there's a quiet revolution. We've been conditioned to believe that the purpose of life is to improve it, to climb higher, to fix the flaws. But life isn't broken. It's not waiting to be perfected. It's already perfect. In its chaos, its unpredictability, its beauty, and its pain. We are the ones who created the idea that life should make sense, that it should follow rules, that it should be neat, clean, and fair. When life doesn't match our expectations, we call it a problem. But it isn't. It's just life doing what life does, changing, evolving, unfolding moment by moment. Think about a river. You don't analyze a river to understand it. You don't try to straighten its curves or slow down its speed. You watch it. You admire it. You let it carry you. Life is the same. When we stop resisting its flow, we discover that peace doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. We spend so much time trying to define everything. Is this good or bad? Is this a sign or a mistake? Should I go left or right? But in nature, there are no such labels. A storm is not bad. It simply is. A flower blooming or withering is not right or wrong. It's just part of the cycle. When we stop labeling every moment, we start living in it. Alan Watts used the metaphor of music. No one listens to music to get to the end. If that were the case, the best songs would be the shortest. We listen to music because we want to experience the flow, the rhythm, the emotion. Life should be approached in the same way, not as a race, but as a melody. But society trains us differently. We're rewarded for achievement, for fixing problems, for optimizing every second. We treat each day like a checklist, and we feel guilty when we're not productive, when we rest, or when we simply enjoy without purpose. Yet Watts warned, you can't get to peace by struggling for it. The more we chase happiness as a destination, the more it escapes us. Because joy isn't found at the end of the road, it's found in the walking, in the pauses, in the moments between moments. When you stop seeing life as a project, you open yourself to something deeper. Wonder. You start noticing the way sunlight filters through the window, or how laughter rises unexpectedly, or how silence can feel like a warm blanket. These aren't goals. They're gifts. And they're always available, if we stop looking past them. The idea that life must be figured out creates anxiety. We panic when we don't have answers. We become addicted to certainty. But life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a reality to be embraced. The more we let go of needing answers, the more answers begin to reveal themselves. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if your sadness isn't a flaw but a message? What if your confusion isn't a failure but a threshold? What if everything you're running from is the very thing calling you home? Watts encouraged us to sit in the mystery, to stop interrupting life with demands for explanations. He believed that true wisdom wasn't found in knowing everything, but in being okay with not knowing. So the next time you feel the need to fix something about your life, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what if this moment doesn't need to be solved? What if it just needs to be seen, felt, and lived? Because once you realize that life was never a problem, you'll finally feel free to live it as a dance. What happens when you let go? Something beautiful begins to happen the moment you stop fighting life. When you stop resisting what is, and let go of the need to control everything, you begin to feel lighter, freer, more alive. It's not a dramatic moment. It doesn't come with trumpets or fireworks. It comes quietly, gently, like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkness. Alan Watts often spoke about the art of letting go, not as a passive surrender, but as a return to our natural state. He believed that the very effort to control life was the thing that made us suffer. We try so hard to grasp the moment, to shape outcomes, to force things to happen the way we believe they should. But the truth is, life flows on its own. And the more we struggle against that flow, the more pain we create. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in, to the rhythm, to the present, to the reality of now. It's the difference between swimming upstream with clenched fists and floating effortlessly downstream, trusting the current to take you where you need to go. So, what exactly happens when you let go? First, your mind becomes quiet. The constant chatter, the anxiety, the overthinking, the judgments begins to soften. You're no longer caught in the exhausting loop of what if, what next, or why me. Instead, you start to listen, not just to your thoughts, but to life itself. You hear the silence between the sounds. You feel the pulse of being that runs beneath the surface of everything. Then you begin to feel peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having everything figured out, but the peace that arises when you no longer need to figure it all out. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, plans, or perfect outcomes. It's just there, like a still lake within you, always waiting, always present. You also begin to notice beauty again, not the grand, impressive kind, but the simple, quiet beauty that's been there all along. The way a leaf dances in the wind, the feeling of warm sunlight on your skin, the spontaneous laughter of a stranger, the soft breath that rises and falls in your chest. When you're no longer obsessed with the next thing, the now opens up. and it's filled with wonder. Relationships shift, too. When you stop trying to control people, fix them, or expect them to fulfill your needs, something magical happens. You begin to love without condition. You listen more deeply. You speak more honestly. You let others be who they are. And in that space of freedom, real connection begins to grow. Watts described this state as Wu Wei, a Taoist term meaning effortless action or non-resistance. It's the state of alignment with the flow of life. When you act without forcing, when things unfold naturally and you participate without strain. It's like dancing to music you didn't compose, but you know every step by heart. You also discover something deeper. Trust, not blind optimism, not naive hope, but a deep, grounded trust in life itself. You begin to believe, not just in your mind, but in your bones, that whatever happens, you will meet it. You will grow through it. You will be okay. Fear starts to lose its grip, because you're no longer living in the future, where fear thrives. You're present, awake, available, and you realize that you don't need certainty to be secure. You don't need guarantees to feel safe. You only need presence. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice, a moment-by-moment choice. But each time you do it, you peel away a layer of resistance. Each time you release the need to control, you reclaim a piece of your peace. Alan Watts said, "To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float." That is the essence of letting go. You stop clinging, and you begin to float. And the water, the vast mysterious current of life, carries you forward. So today, try loosening your grip. Try relaxing into the moment. Try trusting that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't. You may just find that everything you were searching for was already here. Why most will never understand this, and how you can. Why is it that these truths, so simple, so liberating, remain hidden to most people? Why do so many continue to chase, to struggle, to suffer, without ever pausing to question the game they're playing? The answer is both heartbreaking and deeply human. Most people are too afraid to let go. We live in a world that values certainty, structure, identity, achievement. We're taught from childhood that our worth depends on how well we perform, how much we know, how many boxes we check. Letting go of control? That sounds like failure. Surrendering the ego? That sounds like death. Alan Watts understood this dilemma intimately. He knew that for many, the illusion of control feels safer than the chaos of truth. The story of me, my goals, my plans, my problems, is comforting, even if it causes suffering. Because at least it's familiar. At least it gives the mind something to cling to. To wake up, to truly understand what Watts taught, is to face a radical shift. It's to realize that you're not who you think you are, that life cannot be figured out, predicted, or tamed, that peace doesn't come from security, it comes from embracing the unknown. And that is terrifying. It's terrifying to imagine that everything you've believed might be incomplete, that your identity, your plans, your striving, might all be based on a misunderstanding. It takes immense courage to let that go, to stand in the silence without clinging to your past or projecting into your future, to simply be, without needing to become. That's why most people never understand. Not because they're incapable, but because they're unready. They need more pain, more frustration, more emptiness, until eventually they ask the question that changes everything. What if there's another way? If you're listening to this now, maybe you're already asking that question. Maybe something deep inside you is stirring. Maybe you've begun to feel the quiet exhaustion of chasing what never satisfies. Maybe you're starting to suspect that life isn't something to master, but something to trust. If so, you're not alone. You're not strange. You're not broken. You're awakening. Alan Watts didn't offer formulas or commandments. He didn't want followers. He wanted people to wake up, to see clearly, to laugh at the absurdity of trying to control the uncontrollable, and to feel the joy that comes when you finally stop trying so hard. Because once you let go, something astonishing happens. You stop living in fear. You stop overthinking every decision. You stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And in that lightness, you discover a freedom you never knew was possible. You begin to flow with life instead of fighting it. You start seeing yourself not as a separate, isolated being, but as an expression of something vast, beautiful, and sacred. You begin to live not from the mind, but from awareness, from presence, from love. That's what most people miss. They think awakening means escaping the world, floating above it all in some enlightened bubble. But true understanding isn't escape. It's deeper participation. It's laughing louder, crying harder, loving more fully, and showing up more honestly. It's not about fixing life. It's about being life. So how can you begin? Start by noticing your breath. It's always now. Feel your body. Feel the moment. Let go of the mental commentary, just for a second. Then try again. Practice surrender, not as passivity, but as presence. Let go of needing to know, needing to solve, needing to arrive. And above all, be gentle with yourself. Awakening is not a race. It's not a competition, it's a remembering, a return, a homecoming to what has always been true. You are not separate. You are not lost. You are not lacking. You are already whole. As Alan Watts said, the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. So stop rushing. Just be here. Just breathe. Just live. And if this journey touched something in you, speak it aloud. Share it. Because sometimes one quiet realization can echo through another soul and wake them up too. Leave this in the comments. Letting go feels like remembering who I truly am. Together, we can create a space where awakening is not rare, but real.